Hi everyone, this is Lori from My File Addiction. Today I'm going to go through and show you how to set up some test cut boxes. You can use this to do your test cuts for the different spacing that you will be able to tolerate cutting with your template material. I talked about this in my previous tip videos, so here I am. I'm going to be showing you how to set up those just so you can kind of see how tight of a space that you can use and to be able to weed out your material and not have any issues. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I am going to go into my shapes and I'm going to create a circle, and I'm going to make that circle 0.13 inches. Okay, so this is the size of an SS10 circle that you would normally cut. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to bring up our replicate panel, and we are going to go into the advanced replicate option here, which is the second one, and we are going to go into select the very last option here on the very right. This is going to allow us to actually put in our spacing, exact spacing measurements. Okay, and I'm going to show you why we're going to do it this way versus like taking an object such as a rectangle or a square or something like that and filling it in. Okay, you're going to get two different results. So the way I'm going to show you how to manually do this, you're going to get an accurate spacing, because we are actually telling the computer to go ahead and duplicate that circle with that amount of spacing as many times as we want to. Okay, when you do it and you have it fill an object, the program is going to just try to fit as many stones into that perimeter of that object. So therefore, the spacing is not always going to be spot on from what you tell it to be. Okay, because there's a possibility, in order to fit say 5, 6, 7 stones in the width of that box, the spacing between those stones could be more than what you told it is. Okay, so it doesn't stop short and say, okay, I'm going to place each one of those circles X amount of space apart. It's going to say from the left side of the box to the right side of the box, this is how many circles I can fit in it. So it will try to not, create it and make it any tighter spacing than what you tell it, but the spacing could be looser. So the way I'm going to show you how to do it is we are going to set the exact spacing that we need. Okay, so let me find my little notes here. In my tip number 1 video, I showed how to use this replicate function in order to manually create some parts of a design. So we are going to use this to manually create our boxes. So we are going to select the circle, and you have an X and Y offset here. Okay, the X will duplicate a circle to the right and left depending on the number that you place in here, whether it's a positive number or a negative number. The Y will duplicate circles up and down And again, it will go in the direction of either up for a positive number. I'm sorry, it duplicates down for a positive number, and if you type in a negative number, it duplicates up. Okay? The number that we're going to put in here is going to be the size of the circle, which is 0.13 inches, and then plus the size of the spacing that we want to do. So in my previous videos, I have said that I use a spacing of 0.025. So when you add 0.025 to 0.13, you get 0.155, okay? So that is going to be our starting point, okay? Anything lower, I mean, if you plan on using a cameo cutter to cut your designs, you might be able to go a smidge tighter. So that means your number could possibly go down to 0.154, possibly 1.53. But if you plan on designing in Silhouette and then saving the file as an SVG to cut in your Cricut program, do not go any smaller than 0.155. Because the problem with the Cricut Cutter and I should say the Design Space program, when you upload that file and it puts a cut line around the outside of a circle, it actually adds and makes that circle larger than it should be. So therefore, when you have circles placed next to each other and they are larger than they should be, it closes in the space between the circles. The Cameo Cutter does not do that. What I set it at is exactly what it cuts at. So that's been an issue for me for quite a while. So I have had to adapt and make the spacing a little bit wider between the circles, because Cricut users use my files along with the Cameo users. Okay, so again, if you are gonna only cut with your Cameo, then you could do test cuts going with a spacing with a little bit tighter spacing and try that out. Or if you're satisfied with the 0.155 and you don't need to go any tighter and you don't want to, then you don't have to. I know like I said, the template material is a lot thinner than it used to be when I first purchased it. When I first purchased it, it was patented. So the person that made it was the only person that could produce it. And the price point for the template material was a lot higher than it is today. So it's funny when I hear people complain about the price of the template material. I used to pay way more than you guys pay now. To me, you guys are getting such a good deal. But again, they have, once the patent was expired and people started reproducing the template material that's on the market today, they brought down the cost, and in order to bring down the cost, they went to a thinner material. So it's not as sturdy as it used to be. Okay, but anyways, so here we have our circle. Oops, I need to go back. And I am going to, first I'm going to duplicate to the right, so I want a positive number to be in here. So that means I'm just going to put in 0.155. And now I'm going to duplicate. Okay, so I'm going to keep my number at 1 here, and I just want to hit my replicate. Oops, I got to select my item here, my circle, and I'm just going to keep selecting this replicate button right here. You don't have to make your squares really big. I would say maybe go, let's see, we have about 8 circles. We could do them about 8 by 8. I think that that should be fine. So I'm going to select this whole row here. And now I'm going to duplicate this row and make it 8 high. Okay? So I need to change this back to 0. And now to duplicate going up and down, I need to make this a negative 0.155. And now I hit my replicate, and it's going to move those up. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now I have a box, a complete, it's a perfect square, 1.215 by 1.215, okay? And each row is exactly 0.155 inches between each circle, and going from left to right, each of those circles is 0.155. So if I were to try and just say, okay, I'm going to make a box. I think in order to make a square, you have to hold down your shift. Okay, so say I just said, oh, you know what, I'm going to try to fill this in, okay? Let's see. Okay, so if I take this box here, and I go to my rhinestone, and I'm going to change this to 0.025. And I'm going to do my SS10, and I'm going to do my linear fill. Now, for one thing, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 circles. So there's 8 here and 8 here. But as you can tell, even though I put in the spacing of 0.025, it filled that square. So now these are spaced farther apart. You can see by almost a whole row. So that means the spacing between these circles is not exactly what we want it to be. Okay? It just said I was going to take that, the computer says I'm going to take that square and I'm going to fill it with circles. And it's going to try to stay in your spacing range. Like I said, it basically the spacing range is, it's not going to make them any closer together than 0.025, but it surely can make them farther than 0.025. So that's the reason we don't want to do any test cuts using the rhinestone function over here. We want to manually set our spacing, okay? So I'm just going to kind of, I'm just going to put that one off to the side. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we can just take one of these circles and we can duplicate it. And now what we're going to do is we are going to close out this because we're not going to use our rhinestone. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change our offset here. And we're going to just bump that up a little bit. So we'll just do this. We'll change this 5 to a 6. And I'm going to replicate up. I'm going to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to select all these. And I'm going to change this to 0. And I'm going to change this to 0.156. And I'm going to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this is a tiny bit more spacing. And now you can see the same amount of circles in there, but now the design goes 1.222. where before it was 1.215. Okay, so more spacing makes the design bigger. Okay, next one. I'm going to take this circle, move it, whoops, select it, hold down my Alt, and I'm going to move this over. I'm going to change this last number to a 7. And I'm going to select it, and I'm going to replicate it 8 times. 5, 6, 7, 8. Change this to 0. Put negative 0.157 because we want it to replicate going up. Okay, so again, now the square is even bigger yet. Okay, so this goes to show you can have the same number of the same size objects in a same perimeter or same shape. I should say shape, but if you add that spacing, it makes everything bigger. Okay. Okay, so we're going to do that. Take this, move it over, and I'm going to change this to an 8. Change this. 0.158. Okay. I'm going to take this, move it over, and I'm going to change this to a 9. Select all these. 0, negative 0.159. And let's do one more. These. This up here. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops, no, you know what? I forgot to change it. Duplicate it. So the next one is changing it to 0.16. Okay, the 160. It's still the same number. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And change this to 0.16. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So if you keep these in a row, let's see, this is the one we did with the rhinestone function. So if we keep these in a row, oops, don't want to do that. You know what, I'm just going to group these easier. Okay, move. Okay, so we have 0.155, 156, 157, 158, 159, and 0.16. Okay, by the time it gets up to 0.16, the size of the design is 0.125, and we started out at 0.1215. This particular design is the one that we filled in using the rhinestone function, and we put the spacing we wanted what did we wanted 0.025. So now if you look, this particular design is, let's see, 0.12. So actually this particular design is, where are we at here? 1.2, and this is 1.19. How is that? Let's put the size of that. Let's see. If we match it up. It's actually wider, but not as tall as the spacing that we use for 0.16. But it's strange because the dimensions are smaller according to these dimensions here. But it kind of cuts in too, so it's not measuring completely outside the circles. You know what, I wonder if let's try to do this. Let's see if I release the stones on that. Okay. So now you can see that square that we started out with, which I made sure that was an absolute perfect square. Now, oh my goodness, I dropped my, sorry about that. I hit my mic and it fell down. It's no longer a square anymore because these dimensions are have changed, and now you can kind of see that it is started out to be the same height as this one, but it ended up being longer, so it was no longer a square anymore. So again, like I said, to be more accurate, especially when you want to do these particular test cuts, it's better to do things like this. When you're making a design, it's not going to make a difference, but in this particular instance, we want to know what your threshold is. So that means that minimum number that you can cut should be the number that you plug in right here for your spacing. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to delete this. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is you want to be able to identify these when you cut them, okay, to know, because once you send these to your cutter, now you're like, which square was which, okay? So it's best, I mean, obviously they start getting bigger, so if you cut them in a straight row, that probably would be your best bet, and that way you can identify this as being your tightest spacing, and this is your looser spacing, by visually looking to see that, you know, this is a smaller square and this is a larger square. Or, you know, what you could do too is maybe, let's see, I grouped that one, so I'm going to ungroup it. This one you could maybe delete one stone. Um, and that way, if you decided, once this goes through your cutter, sometimes you're like, okay, was this the top? Was this the bottom? How was this cut? So at least by eliminating, putting kind of a marking on one of them, you'll know when you look at that template material and you look at your computer screen, you'll be like, okay, this is the way it's cut, and this is my spacing for each one. Okay, so once you cut these, you're going to cut them all on the same template, and then as you weed, pay attention to see, which one is tearing, which one, allows you to really pull on that material, and, it's not going to budge. So then you can kind of get your baseline as to what you're spacing, what you can tolerate, okay? Not to say that you need to rip that stuff off, but sometimes in order to get those holes to weed out, you do have to, pull on it a little bit. So if you do this, like I said, then you can tolerate, or you can adjust the spacing if you need to. Like I said, I am suggesting that you use 0.025 as your baseline. But again, if and if you decide this at this point and you're cutting with a cameo and you're not having any tearing, maybe make a couple more boxes and start going, your number backwards. So instead of, the baseline number is 155, go to 154, and then change it to 153. Go back. That gives you tighter spacing, and see if you can tolerate that. But it's worth it in the long run to do this, to know where you stand before you start creating a bunch of designs and you realize that your spacing is off, you're having issues. You can adjust it now while you're still in the learning process, and then move forward and use the spacing that works best for you. Okay, so if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, and if you want to see any future videos that I'm going to make, I plan on doing a series. So hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be notified when I do release more videos. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.